Do you have a brilliant startup idea but are stuck in the launching phase? Are you feeling overwhelmed by funding, marketing, or just where to start? Don't let your startup idea stay grounded. Visit our website at eapla.com to schedule a Blue Couch meeting and launch your startup journey today.
Back with another episode of On The Cusp. Matt's back with me.
Thank you,
and
Dave.
Today we've got Dr. Christopher Shelby, and it's Glaive Medical
Optics.
Glaive
Medical Optics, yeah. It's a wonderful name like we were talking about before.
Yeah, but when we started out, you got to give us a story on the name. Where'd that come from?
So I got to give you the history of how all this happened. My brother-in-law, Wayne Woods, is super genius, and he's got over 100 international patents, all in the RF quantum computing space. I mean, he's a true genius. And he worked at IBM for quite a while, and when you work at IBM, and you come up with something, IBM owns it.
Right.
And he's generated several $1 billion in revenue for IBM themselves. So he left IBM and went to work for Lincoln Labs at MIT in their quantum computing lab. And in the interim, he actually ended up with Guillain-Barré. And if you're not familiar with Guillain-Barré, it's a rapid onset paralyzing disease that's usually caused by some post-infection process. And he actually called me from the parking lot of the ER and gave me his symptoms. I told him to go on in because he either had MS or Guillain-Barré, and they needed to go ahead and evaluate him. Luckily, he was in Boston at the time, and they treated him with an experimental protocol at a Cleveland clinic, and so it prevented him from ever getting on the ventilator. But the point to that is that he realized at that time that life is not a dress rehearsal. And so if he really wanted to do the things that he wanted to do, then he was going to have to take that initiative. And so he then switched to MIT. We started this patent aggregation firm, and we called it Glaive because we were trying to think of a name from some 80s B movie. And that's where, I mean, it took us, believe it or not, weeks to come up with this. And he called me. He was like, "Oh, my God, have you seen Kroll?" I was like, "Love Kroll. Used to watch it all the time. Very cheesy." And they had a 5-bladed weapon called the Glaive. And so that's how we ended up choosing Glaive. And it was actually Glaive RF, which stands for radio frequency, because Wayne had invented the phase shifters that are foundational in what's going to be our 5G networks. So pretty smart guy.
Very.
And we began to he began to create patents, and we just put them in this basket. And the goal was like throwing spaghetti against the wall. So he would come up, because a very forward-thinking type of guy. And so he would come up with these ideas about the narrow band communications and like AR and VR and all these future technologies. And so, you know, without getting too much into it, if Meta or Samsung or somebody decides to put 5G on an AR, VR headset, we own all those patents. So they're going to have to come to us for licensure.
Which is going to happen eventually.
Eventually. And we're just hoping it happens before the patent runs out, which is, several years. But that was the initial hope. And then we began to talk about productizing one of the patents or several of the patents. And of course, I work in ophthalmology. I've got the greatest job ever because, you come in, you have cataracts or you need LASIK. I can do surgery, and by the next day, it's a whole new world.
Right.
It is amazing. And of course, there's a number of disease processes, and macular degeneration being one of the hot potatoes of ophthalmology. And what I mean by that is when somebody's diagnosed with macular degeneration, most of them think, "Oh my God, this is a blinding process." Well, the good news is there's good treatments, injections, you can take supplements.
Yeah, my father had macular degeneration. We brought him up here every week for his injections, and it saved his eyesight for sure.
Oh, and the injections have been miraculous. Matter of fact, Charlie Lyon, who is one of our retina specialists here, was one of the pioneers in Avastin injections. And I remember being a resident, because I'm old enough, to where it was before the injections were available, and you would just watch people go blind. And then when the injections came out, it was truly miraculous. And so in the bell curve of those macular degeneration patients, that's a narrow subset, because you have other ones that go on to complete blindness centrally. And those are the patients that we're focused on, because once it gets to a certain point, injections don't work, nothing really works. What do you do?
Yeah, and that's what Glaive is now, and that's what you're working on now.
That's correct.
And I'm excited because a lot of people think there isn't a lot of technology being developed in Shreveport, and I go, oh, whoa, wait, you don't know, okay? So what is Glaive? What are you doing right now, the product that you guys are trying to take to market?
So what we're trying to take to market is a image shifting digital intraocular lens. And what that means is, with somebody who has any macular scarring, which your macula is the center of your vision. So imagine you're looking straight ahead and you've got something blocking the center of your vision. And that's a blinding disease. But these patients have robust peripheral vision. And so if we can take the central image that's coming into the eye and we can shift it, and if we have complete control over the shift of that central image,
Which is really a focus piece, right?
Exactly.
If I understand what you're saying, it's about how you focus within the eye.
It is, and the problem is, obviously, the human body is amazing, and so that static focus that comes in when you're looking, you can't change that. I mean, you can use a prism or something like that to shift image, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about truly digitally. So we're going to take an image onto a CCD chip and then use a projection system, which is what our proprietary technology is, and be able to move that image over
To the back of the eye.
anywhere we want to.
Anywhere
on the
you
retina.
want. On the retina. So you'll take, right now, if you know anything about macular degeneration, you have a big blind spot right in the middle
Yeah.
of that. So you're basically taking the focal point of the eye and you're moving it over and projecting it to where they see 100%
Correct.
of what they normally would not see.
Yeah, and that came about because there is an implant that we currently put in called the implantable microtelescope. Because when you have this scar in the back of the eye and you have a tight focus on there, of course you can't see because it's focused on the scar. But if you can take that focus and you expand it like a telescope, you're magnifying the image, you're shrinking down that peripheral field, and you can project the image onto the healthy part of the retina. And so it actually works very, very well in some patients. The problem is with that one is that we can't predict where the image is going to be, or we can't shift the image. And so that's actually how the discussion started with me and Wayne was, I asked him, because we're talking about phase shifting and shifting a radio frequency, can we do the visual spectrum also? And of course his answer was, yeah, of course we can.
Yeah, because it's light.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, it's just a different wavelength.
Right.
And it's kind of fun to watch these guys. You give them this task and watch them come up with all these solutions for it. It's been actually a lot of fun.
Oh, I'll bet.
Matter of fact, we just achieved focus because we're working on the prototype right now. And achieving focus was a huge thing because we're focusing something, just a few millimeters, and we have to be able to shift that.
And the
focus.
neat thing for us is not only are you going to test it here, okay, in Shreveport, but you're going to manufacture these eventually here.
We are.
And which means you're going to have a lot of, microchips. I mean.
Yeah, the fabrication of the microchips, and the assembly of the units and packaging and everything else, and of course doing the FDA trials.
Right, we're going to do the FDA
here.
trials here and everything. Of course, we're counting on you to, bring the patients for that.
Oh, they're out there. It's funny because when we talk about the economics, of course, that's what investors want to know is the economics. And we throw the numbers out of people who are blind, who are possible candidates for this. The number's probably 2 or even 3 times as many as published, because you have to imagine, if you're blind and you go to your eye doctor and they're like, hey, guess what? You're blind, and you're going to be blind when we see you again, but we'll see you again in 6 months. What's the motivation to go?
Right.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot.
Oh, none. I mean, so those patients get lost to follow-up.
Right. So what you're making, though, is tiny. I mean, tiny, tiny. I can't even fathom how you create. So you're talking about like a microchip. It's got to be a microchip.
Oh yeah, I
in
mean
something.
it's like cyborg type stuff, truly.
I mean, that is incredible.
But you're literally implanting it in the eye in a certain position to where it refocuses on that retina.
Mm-hmm. That's it, and we're going to be able to bring patients in. So the goal is to take them to surgery and it not be a brutal surgery, because there are some solutions that they're working on for this that are pretty barbaric, in my opinion. And from a surgical standpoint, it is pretty barbaric. And what we're doing is something that a cataract surgeon, a comprehensive ophthalmologist would feel comfortable doing once they have the lens implanted. And you're talking about a 20, 30-minute surgery maybe.
So is the projector, the chip, is that in the lens? And then you're, like a LASIK or a cataract, you're putting in the lens.
Correct. So all the tech is in the lens itself. The CCD chip, the projecting, the projector element, it's all within the chip itself, or the lens itself. We implant that. We let the patient heal for a couple of days. Then we bring them in, and we can passively shift the image. So they'll sit at a proprietary machine, and we'll begin to shift the image until they say, oh my God, okay, I can see Dave's face, or I can see, okay, I can see this. And what's interesting is when I was talking to Wayne, he said, I think the best thing to do is to be able to move a red box on the retina itself so we can see where it's being projected, which means that not only can we move that image and allow these patients to see better, but we can also image the retina with the technology itself.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it is really, that's kind of groundbreaking, because if they go see a retina specialist or something, instead of having to look through the eye, they can pull it up on a screen and actually see what the lens is seeing in the back of the eye.
Wow.
Who knows what else you can discover when you start looking at that? What other eye defects you're going to be able to see?
Well, and we're also going to be able to figure out the neuro-ophthalmology and the neuroplasticity of the brain. One of the retina specialists that we were talking to was asking us, so what patient can't have this lens? What patient will this not work for? How much damage to the retina is too much damage? And we don't know, because this is so novel and disruptive that as long as we can get the image to a healthy part of the retina, who knows how that patient will be able to function.
Oh, wow.
And
my mind is just running with all the different types of things you could do.
Oh, it's we
you could be sending signals to that device, which is projecting it in your brain, and you could be seeing, Well,
and the other thing we're going to be able to do with it too is if somebody's deaf and blind, let's say that they're wearing hearing aids that don't work very well, and of course a lot of that's a reward for birthdays. As we get older, a lot of these things happen. We're going to be able to, and this is with version 1, project closed captions on the retina. So they can now see, and if they're deaf, then the captioning of the conversation will come up also.
Oh my God, how cool is that?
So they're now reading,
Yeah.
Okay, what you're saying.
I mean, that's nuts.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
I was thinking about tying it to an unmanned aerial vehicle to be able to see over the hill, right?
Well, Dr. Shelby, you're making me feel like a real idiot today. I mean, this is the smartest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, I know. I mean, me too. That's what I'm saying. These, like our engineers, Wayne and Alex, our other engineer who's heading this team, we get on calls, all the time, and I mean, just the things that they're doing.
Yeah, that's a different level of.
It's a totally different level, and of course, you'd imagine we've had a lot of conversations, and we've had a lot of conversations with a lot of physicists and engineers, and they can be a little bit intellectual snobs until my brother-in-law starts talking, and then everybody realizes that they are not the smartest person in the room. I mean, it's just, and he's from Monroe, Louisiana.
Crazy.
You would think, and talking to him, is just a good old boy, but he loves it, and you can tell they think differently, and it's just, like I said, it's a lot of fun, because I'll say, hey,
so
can we do this?
where are we on the technology right now?
So we're in prototype development phase.
Okay.
And the initial couple of years, we're de-risking the technology, making sure that we could make it function like we say it would. And of course, the software modeling nowadays is incredibly powerful. And everything we went through It's like, great, this works. It's actually going to work better than we thought it would. And so now it's all about taking those pieces and putting them together. And because the biggest rate limiting step is size, of course.
Right.
You know, we got to make it as small as possible. And with the way the microchips are, there's two different ways to do it. There's the normal microchip that you see that we can make very small. You know, you can put, 1 million transistors on a microchip nowadays. And then there's ASIC, which is application-specific integrated circuit, which is what you find in your GPUs or your Bitcoin miners, things like that. Of course, that's much smaller, but that's very time-consuming. And so being able to take those pieces, it's like Tetris, you know, and trying to fit those things together to where they're small enough, to where the footprint is small enough to put inside the eye, but works like we want it to.
Yeah,
so we're in the middle of that phase, testing every individual component.
The idea that you can put a microchip into someone's eye is just mind-blowing to me.
I know.
That we've gotten to that point. I mean, when we were kids, there weren't cell phones.
Oh, exactly. I know. I remember that.
And like, we're to that point where we're putting microchips in people's eyes that you can't see. That's unbelievable.
I know. It's amazing.
This is so cool.
Well,
we're so
I love
thankful
it.
you're doing this in Shreveport.
And doing this
cool.
in Shreveport. And that's why I love it so much, is because people say, we're not on the cutting edge of anything.
Oh,
and
we
I'm
beat
like,
up. There's a lot of
I-
talented people in Shreveport. There's a lot of smart people in Shreveport. I mean, Matt
and I say it all the time, Shreveport's its worst enemy, okay? I mean, we'll focus on the negative.
all the geniuses are not in New York City.
That's correct.
But
Right, yeah,
some of
that's
them are
exactly.
in Monroe.
Exactly. Some of them are from Monroe.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
They're not all sitting in Boston, you know, or California.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. We were having a conversation this morning. My daughter's about to go to graduate school at NYU, and she went to boarding school in Rhode Island, and she went to Elon in North Carolina. And so a lot of New Englanders are with her. And it's amazing the number of her contemporaries who are from New England that aren't going to get graduate degrees, but how many from the South are. You know, it's almost like we get a bad rap.
We do.
We do.
Totally bad rap.
We do.
Yeah.
We need
I saw it
more
for
of our
26
talented
years.
people coming back.
Absolutely. And that's the key.
That's the key, and that's the part that I've been battling for a long time, and I continue to fight, because you're only as good as your talent.
Yeah.
And if all our talent and all our kids, you know, don't come back,
Yeah, we got to bring
we're
them
doing
back.
what we
Definitely.
got. But
Definitely.
there's some cool stuff happening, and this is amazing.
Awesome. This is great. Well, Chris, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for
coming
having me.
in and talking about this.
It's great. It's very exciting.
And best of luck.
Enjoy the podcast? We would love your feedback about today's show and who you think should be our next guest. Send us an email at info@eapla.com. Also, be sure to share the show and leave a comment on our social media post.